You were never supposed to see this. For decades, they denied it. For generations, they buried it. But now, for the first time in American history, it's official. President Trump and RFK Jr. just opened a door that could never be closed again. The truth they released? It's not just inconvenient, it's horrifying. And it has officially changed everything. The box has been opened, and no one can close it again. And that's the story I'll bring you here in just 1 minute. This one's going to make you sick to your stomach. A story that so many of us knew was there, waited for an answer, could never get until now. And it's a story we're going to ultimately focus on. Of course, you know I always do some housekeeping first. Some stories that we've covered throughout the week that continue to develop, like Jake Tapper, admitting he dropped the ball on Biden's mental decline, physical decline. Of course, he's promoting his book, but well, now he said the quiet part out loud. Much different than what you may have expected, because if you think Jake Tapper just changed his tune suddenly for no reason, think again.
There needs to be transparency by leaders when it comes to their health. This applies to Donald Trump too, and every future president. Donald Trump has released like nothing about his health.
Right.
And while there aren't the questions of acuity, there are certainly questions about his health.
Well, I'll be damned. So all this talk, trying to sell your book, I made a mistake. I should have told you about Biden. It was always about Trump now, wasn't it? Why should nothing surprise us anymore? But day after day, we get shocked here, don't we? And disgusted. Like this little post from one of my least favorite people on this planet. Hillary Clinton, I'm giving you a mission for this Memorial Day, which should normally be, honor, remembrance, respect. But no, not in her world. I want you to talk to two people, friends, neighbors, cookout attendees about why Trump's proposed budget would be a disaster for American kids. We owe the next generation every chance, and this isn't it. So that's how you want to honor Memorial Day. You want to honor it by having people trash on Trump. Thank God you were never president. This is one of the most, she just never ends on her disgusting acts against those who have given their lives in the service of this country to protect our Constitution. How dare you? Shouldn't be surprised, but every day I am, right? But it is the apparatus in itself that is disturbing. The one that has hidden information from you for decades that finally Trump and RFK Jr. released. But man, he's got a lot of house cleaning to do, doesn't he? More than 100 National Security Council staffers put on administrative leave. That just happening yesterday. Oh, I wonder why they're cleaning house, huh? An email from NSC's Chief of Staff, Brian McCormick, went out around 4:20 p.m., informing those being dismissed they have 30 minutes to clean out their desk, according to an administration official. The scary part of this whole statement, though, is this is at the NSC. And what did the subject line read? Return to your home agency, indicating that most of those affected were detailed to the NSC from other departments and agencies, and I wonder what they were doing there, huh? The National Security Council. Wonder who they were reporting on. Wonder what they were collecting, because it appears now they were collecting a lot of information and classifying a lot of people in a lot of real bad ways. Oh, I'm aggravated. Every time something gets exposed, I get more aggravated. Because I guess today, well, I'm a domestic violent extremist. Yeah, that's what I was classified by the Biden administration multiple times over now.
Thread through here that these ideologies that they are designating as turning into potentially violent activities or being manifested in violent activities happen to be those of people who were using their First Amendment rights to oppose certain policies of the Biden administration. And while some of the examples that are focused on there have to do with those who opposed the COVID mandates, those who opposed the mask mandates.
Yeah, the list continues to go on and on, doesn't it? Because you really, under that administration, if you did not implicitly agree with the administration, had no rights. You had no freedoms. You had no liberties. If you didn't go along with the party line, then they classified you as a domestic violent extremist. It could result in violence. Here's the memo that she released. Unclassified now. I'll go full screen. It's probably a little bit easier to read. Or I'll just focus in on certain sections here. The NCTC, the DHS, and the FBI assessed that some domestic violent extremists and their foreign analogs will threaten or mobilize to violence in opposition to anything that the company line, the government line, believed with COVID-19. That was it. You have no choice for opinion. You have no choice for anything. Just go along, or the classification hits. And I wonder what that classification meant, huh? What did that come along with? Further investigations? Some DVEs employ a number of techniques, some of which may be criminal, which means you can now go under investigation. They can keep an eye on you because they classified you because if you had any counter opinion whatsoever. Wonder why Lisa and I work so darn hard to create our own news platform. It's so reminiscent of other regimes out there, isn't it? Because you would think you were talking about a communist nation somewhere. Kind of like North Korea, I guess. Did you hear about this one? Moment of lightheartedness, hilarity. Too big to conceal. North Korea fesses up to botched warship launch. That's right. Kim Jong-un goes to launch his mega warship. You see it there in dry dock. But unfortunately, it capsized. It couldn't happen to a nicer guy. Of course, you can't cover that up because everyone was watching. Talk about another one of my least favorite people in the world. That is Mayor Brandon Johnson. Brought you this story earlier this week. It was this clip in particular I want you to listen to first.
Some detractors that will push back on me and say, the only thing that the mayor talks about is the hiring of black people. And so business and economic neighborhood development, the deputy mayor is a black woman. Department of Planning and Development is a black woman. Infrastructure deputy mayor is a black woman. Chief operations officer is a black man. Budget director is a black woman. Senior advisor is a black man.
So people complain that, I only focus on hiring black people, and then you list a list of all black representatives, which is fine. They're most qualified. Nobody would have an issue with that. But rather than, say, okay, that maybe sounded a little bit kind of not how I wanted it. Not that Brandon Johnson cares, because he frankly doesn't. Well, then you shouldn't immediately try to turn it on. I know you'll never guess who he tried to turn it on, just like every story in this country is turned on. Listen here.
As far as, the president's animus towards women, people of color, working people, we have always known who he has been. This is not a surprise. He's a monster.
Of course, Trump is the monster. Trump is the monster. Because, he just hates black people, which he has never shown any propensity to whatsoever. And the misogynist thing is just getting to be an old talking point. But, what's the real monster in this scenario? 20 shocking Chicago crime statistics and trends. Let's just show facts and figures here, shall we? Violent crime in Chicago surged by 11.5%. Despite a reduction in homicides, the rate remains 45% higher than a decade ago. The city reported a staggering 22,569 assault cases. Experienced a decade high in vehicle thefts, 30,500 incidents. Arrest rate for violent crimes, but that part have dropped. That's not a good thing. To the lowest in a decade at just 10.8%, raising concerns about the effectiveness of law enforcement. Crimes against males were reported at 194 compared to 23 against females, illustrating a stark gender disparity in victimization. The majority of crime victims were black, 171 cases, followed by Hispanic, 41 cases, reflecting ongoing racial disparities in crime victimization. So before you go call people monsters, you might want to look at your own damn statistics. And this is all before we even get to our primary topic today. Do you know what RFK Jr. and Trump just admitted to that happened to 40% and is happening to 40% of our children? You know there's nothing more severe to me, more important to me than our children. Did you know that 9 out of the last 10 FDA commissioners, they now work for Big Pharma? Did you know that? Oh, I'm sure it's just some crazy coincidence. Well, until you hear the report that was just released. Page 18 of this report should be a RICO case. The Maha report started by lighting the fuse on the incestuous revolving door between the FDA, the CDC, the EPA, the USDA, and the very industries that they regulate. But it's all out in the open now. It's all out there. 60 billion dumped by the food industry into its own research. The government? Oh, they spent 1.5 billion. You tell me, who's in charge of the science? You know, besides those 10,000 EPA chemicals marked confidential. Sleep tight. You won't after you hear this report. Before I get there, I need a huge favor from you, as we do every broadcast, because we work to assure the algorithm actually allows these important videos out with real information, referenced, and research. That's what we do here at RestrictedRepublic.com. That's what Lisa and I work day and night to provide you. So first, I want to make sure you are subscribed to Lisa's channel. If you're new here, welcome home. And if you'd like, I'd love you to subscribe to my channel. You know I'll fill in for Lisa. You know I do my own daily broadcast every day. Well, except for what I cover for Lisa. But nonetheless, another huge way to support us is, you notice Lisa has super thanks on this video. She loves to see when you provide that additional support, and she loves to see your name pop up at RestrictedRepublic.com, the platform her and I created out of our own pocketbooks. No corporate sponsors, which goes right to the heart of today's article. No backers, just Lisa and me. And we did that on purpose because we're beholden to one person only, you, our audience. I would love you right now to go to RestrictedRepublic.com, and you will hear news the way you always were meant to hear it. Exclusive content daily on top of every broadcast we do on every platform, with all commercials and interruptions removed. It is your one source for news, and it will be a web search and a click that you will not regret. And trust me, you ain't getting through the catalog. Not today, not this week, not next week, not this month even. There's more material there than you can fathom, and we'd love to have you a part of the RestrictedRepublic.com family today. But now let's get back to this broadcast.
So this is the first time in history that all of government has come out with a consensus document that all the cabinet officials agree on. Right. And that says we are in a existential crisis now in our country. It's important. The government has never admitted that before. And today we're all admitting it, and we're saying now we're going to do something about it.
Wow, first time in history the U.S. government has ever admitted it. The majority of topics within the report, if you were ever to discuss, they were conspiracies. You need to shut your mouth. You need to keep quiet. You can't talk about this. And the statistics provided in this report are staggering. I'm going to give you the highlights as always. You can dive in. I'll put a link to the report in the description box below. The chronic disease crisis, a generation at risk. Over 40% of the roughly 73 million children aged 0 to 17 in the United States have at least one chronic health condition. Folks, I don't know if you know the staggering statistic that is. 40% of 73 million children have at least one chronic disease. According to the CDC, such as asthma, allergies, obesity, autoimmune disease, or behavioral disorders. Folks, we have a problem. Over 75% of American youth aged 17 to 24 are ineligible for military service. 75%. And why? Primarily due to obesity, poor physical fitness, and/or mental health challenges. Just imagine if we continued with the last administration, how much higher that number would have become. Oh, but Trump's big, beautiful bill is a horrible thing. You're stripping health care. No, you're funding the fix. The fix to what, you might ask? You know, I always love to do my John Madden. I love graphics because they really tell a story, because we are the great Republic of the United States of America, leaders in everything. Life expectancy and health expenditure per capita by country. Life expectancy. So you would expect to see the U.S. way up here, right? No, we're the red line at the bottom. That's disgusting. Portugal, Israel, Italy, Spain, South Korea, Australia, Switzerland, Norway, Canada, Denmark, Austria, Belgium, Finland. Yeah, they're all above us. That's just a start. Let's go forward. Prevalence of obesity among G7 countries age 5 to 19. Guess where we're at? Oh, that's right. We're up here again. If that's not enough. Pre-diabetes age 12 to 19. Look at how much it has risen. What do you think that's from? Go ahead, put it in the comments below. What do you think that is from? I'll tell you in a second, but I want you to put it in the comments below. Autism rates among children by age 8. No one should ever want to see this curve. Ever. And what are we doing about it? Well, RFK Jr. says nothing. Or not nearly enough. Cancer rates per 100,000 ages 0 to 19. And let's just take the trend line, shall we? There you go. Oh, that's phenomenal. This was never disclosed before. This was always kept from you. Why do you think that is? Had at least one major depressive episode in the past year, ages 12 to 17. You see the trend line there. Prevalence of food allergies. Wonder why that's happening from 1997 through 2018. And those allergies just keep going up and up and up. And what has happened in our food supply that would have changed that? It's something called ultra-processed foods is what is being contested. But if you went to research it, the food companies were the ones funding the research. This is all about conflict of interest. Over 40% of U.S. children have a chronic health condition, including asthma, allergies, obesity, autoimmune disease, or behavioral disorders. Over 75% ineligible for military service. Teen suicides and depressions have surged, with suicides among 10 to 24-year-old girls up 67% since 2007. Suicide up 67%. So much for technology helping to make lives better, huh? 95% of the 2020 Dietary Guideline Advisory Committee members had financial ties to food and pharmaceutical companies. Independence in government. You have to have independence in government. The chemical manufacturing industry spent roughly $77 million on federal lobbying activities in 2024, while 60% of their lobbyists previously held federal posts. I despise any form of lobbying for this specific reason. It's why I am so staunchly against it. More than 10,000 chemicals listed on the EPA's inventory are designated as confidential. 10,000 chemicals designated as confidential. And generic chemical names are used to identify them. That doesn't keep you awake at night. I don't know what will. Pharma, of course, from 1999 to 2018, spent $4.7 billion on lobbying expenditures at the federal level, more than any other industry. And that statistic I gave you before, 9 out of the last 10 FDA commissioners, and approximately 70% of the agency's medical reviewers have gone on to work for the same industry that they were overseeing. Over 80% of clinical departments and teaching hospitals at the U.S. medical schools receive some degree of funding from pharmaceutical companies. This is all within the report now. Now it's out to the public. Everything we've been talking about for years and years and years, well, the portions that we're allowed to. The shift to ultra-processed food is focused on. The cumulative load of chemicals in our environment, they focus on everything here. Wi-Fi, mobile phones, organic pollutants, industrial residues, heavy metals, air pollutants, pesticides, and you see who's dead center in the middle there, right? The focus of this report are children, the crisis of childhood behavior in the digital age. That's not getting any better either. Now, what are they going to do about it? Should be the paramount question, right? Multiple things here, 1 through 10. They don't mean a lot to me because if you dig into the report a bit further, they will release the next report outlining the actual solutions by August 12th of 2025. While it's clear the centralized government agencies have failed, if only time will tell if bigger and more centralized federal authority will be the proposed solution. Or maybe Maha will break the cycle by closing the revolving door. You think they'll be able to do that? It's a monster question. Do you think they'll actually be able to close the revolving door? Because portions of this report, they read like a freaking RICO Act. Although the U.S. health system has reproduced remarkable breakthroughs, we must face the troubling reality that the threats to American childhood have been exacerbated by perverse incentives that impact the regulatory bodies and federal agencies tasked with overseeing them. While Congress is ultimately in charge of authorizing federal regulatory agency research budgets, government funding has been only a small portion of the totality of research dollars being spent on chronic childhood disease. The majority is funded by the very companies making those products. And special interest groups, NGOs keep coming up, don't they? And professional associations. The food industry funds the bulk of research in the field. A BMJ analysis found that the industry spent over $60 billion on that research. By comparison, the government, which is supposed to be regulating it, they spent $1.5 billion. So then would the research potentially, be a little slighted, do you think? This report is disturbing. It's not a huge one. I think it's only about 74 pages, not one of the biggest reports out there, but one of the most impactful releases by any official in the U.S. government, approved by all in the cabinet. That's how important they view it. How important do you view it? Because to me, there is nothing more important than the protection of our children. They're our future. And we have failed them. Absolutely failed them. I invite you to read this entire report. It is something that every single American needs to know, and they need to know now. Because when you elect that next government official, you might want to look a little deeper into who they're tied to. Because those policies should be dictated by nothing other than actual vetted science, non-biased, period. Because we have 40 million children now we need to save. And that number would only continue to grow if this report wasn't put out and action is not taken. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight. Signing out.